for general family viewing.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Limit. My name is Zainab Mohammed. Today on this episode we'll be speaking about sexual disorders, and with me to discuss this very important topic is a panel of 3 doctors. Right next to me is Dr. Jen Nyutu. Dr. Jen is the CEO and founder, Mind and Beyond Wellness Center. At the center is Dr. Rehab Gatushi, clinical psychologist and lecturer, Mount Kenya University, Nairobi campus. Last but not least is Dr. Sarah Kimaru Mushai, Dean, School of Social Sciences at Mount Kenya University and coordinator, Persons with Disability, also at Mount Kenya University. Thank you so much for making time and for joining me to discuss this very important topic. I'll start with you, Dr. Jane. What are sexual dysfunctions?
Yes, sexual dysfunction are a collection of issues or syndrome that cause a lot of distress to the person who is suffering and frustrations. They are to do with how they respond to their desires, their sexual urges, and performance. So they are very pertinent issues that are in the hearts of every human being, because we were created and we were as sexual beings. And that is why you find sexual dysfunction becoming a topic of discussion that is very key. Yes.
Dr. Rehab, we've heard about sexual dysfunctions. Is it the same with sexual disorders?
Sexual disorders emanate from sexual dysfunctions that have escalated. So sexual dysfunctions are they're actually normal, and they happen a lot because it is a matter of a problem with sexuality. Problems with sexuality, they are common, but when they persist for a long time, they now become disorders. So that is what happens when now we talk about disorders. It's a higher level of the dysfunction.
So one crops from the other. Dr. Sarah, why is this a taboo topic?
I would say it's not just about the sexual disorders which is a taboo. We start by saying that even issues to do with sex and sexuality within the African communities, it's considered like it's a topic not for discussion. And I think that's where we don't get it right, because if anything, we are a product of sex. So when we talk of sex and sexual disorders, we see a lot of things that people don't want to disclose about what is sex and when we can say there is a dysfunction about sex and when it becomes a disorder. And if anything, what we see is that we see the fruits or the symptoms of disorder, of this sexual disorder. Like we see people trying to overeat, people getting even to mental health issues. And so when we say when we say sexual disorders, I think we need to come out and first discuss what is sex and then what is sexuality. And it can be discussed in families, it can be discussed in schools, at institutional levels, even in churches. We make it an open topic. However, very few is known amongst people about the disorders and even dysfunction, sexual disorders. It's very little is known about it because we are also lacking what you call sexual education. So people are not enlightened about the disorders that could be in existence. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Jane, are there types of sexual disorders?
Yes, like Dr. Rehab have said, yes, when it comes to sexual disorders, they are now clinical. They are way above the normal. And types are many. Maybe I'll just mention a few. For example, we have people who are attracted to having sex with the young children who are maybe 13 years or even younger. They are called pedophiles. You find them mostly working in places where children are, nursery school, primary schools, Sunday school. And it's a disorder that makes them get the urge, the sexual urge, and they want to actualize their urges using the children. It's so abnormal. And sometimes the children are threatened. They cannot report to anyone because they are not mature enough. They can be given gifts, or they are just threatened by word of mouth. Do not tell your mama. Don't tell anyone. We have other sexual disorders such as paraphilias. People who, they look at things, they're like fetish clothing, like brassieres or women panties, and they get the sexual urge or the desire and the arousal. And you'll find them on clotheslines, taking the bras and the panties in their pockets. They put them maybe where they sleep just to get that excitation and to feel like they have had sex, and they feel pleasure, the pressure. And they do all this in secret. And you hear people who, for example, who stay in flats, having such stories of someone who just stares and they are seen looking through the window. Someone is taking a shower. They want to see the naked people, and they really become like urge. They feel so good about their sexuality. These are way above abnormalities. Yes, and women's handbags and others are exhibitionists. You enter in a matatu and someone wants to touch you, or they will tell you, bring your child, I hold for you. And then they'll place their child near their private parts. And they will feel the urge of sex, they masturbate, but the mother to the child is not aware. And the child may come complaining that they had something hard when they were held by that kind of a person. So and so many things happen in our society that go unnoticed, unreported, but there are people who are suffering, especially children and young girls. And there are so many other types of sexual disorders. I think Dr. Rehab can continue from there.
Dr. Rehab, are there more types of disorders that you can tell us? And also, could you tell us, are these types of disorders genetic or acquired?
Like Dr. Jane has said, sexual disorders are many. We have those that we call the erectile disorders. There are those that we call the orgasmic disorders. And they are both in men and in women. And some of those in men are disorders to do with erection. They have erectile dysfunctions so that they are unable to erect. They have problems with ejaculation, premature ejaculation. For women, you find there are conditions like vaginismus and such other, or even pain during sex. And there are actually quite a wide range of those disorders. And they can be either genetic or acquired. Sometimes you may find that somebody is born with a problem, a sexual problem. And especially in the days that we are living in, now people are coming out who are born with issues of sexuality, problems of sexuality. And like Dr. Sarah told us, it has been that people have not talked about issues related to sexuality. But these days you find people are coming out, and you realize that there are some people that are born with a sexual condition which is not the norm. Others are acquired, and actually a wide range of sexual disorders are acquired, because you find they will come about because of maybe some chronic sicknesses like diabetes. Some will come about because of drug and substance abuse. especially alcohol. Some will come because of age. Yeah, so some, in other words, some will be genetic. Others, genetic means that they are right there from the time of birth, and they are hereditary, they have come from the lineage of the particular person. And then others are acquired because of the environment, because of the exposures, and because of maybe the body and the things that people do, including lack of proper feeding could also be something that causes these things to happen.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Rahab, sorry, Dr. Sarah, why is it that people can't openly talk about these disorders?
As you have heard, the issues of sex, as we have said, are discussed as if they are discussed at low tones, where we don't want to describe beyond, and we only think that sex should only be taken in a positive way, but we don't want to look at the negative side of it. And why people won't talk about it is because there is a lot of stigma and discrimination for anyone who may mention that they are going through some kind of a disorder of a kind. They fear to be judged. People fear to be judged. They fear to be criticized. They also fear to be blacklisted, you know. And so what you find is that you see a couple that is doing well, and they have all what it takes to make a good family. But eventually you hear a man has walked out of the family, or the lady has walked out of the family, or they have moved out of their marital home and all that, and simply because of some of those causes that we have mentioned. And some, it's not the making of an individual. Like we have mentioned, there are those that are genetical. There are those that can be caused by chronic diseases. So sexual disorders, as you have heard from Dr. Jane and Dr. Rahab, they can have different causes. And so it's only until maybe one gets into marriage and realizes, oh, my spouse has a disorder. But because you've never had it mentioned, it was never discussed even before marriage, you simply see people walking out. But if you try to dig out why is it happening, why is it that you've walked out of your marriage, people don't want to disclose, because that's what we are speaking about. There is stigma and discrimination, and there is that kind of, you don't want to face embarrassment. You don't want to be looked as an non-performer. But it is true, the disorders are real, these things are happening, and I would wish that people may open up and discuss them, because as you have heard, some are you can cure, they can be cured. There is medicine to it. There is also the social support that you can gain from people, and they'll tell you maybe you are not the only one, there is this that you can do. People are not out also to seek help. But as we have said, it's possible to go through it if you discuss it with a counselor, a person who can help you through the journey. I wish we can open up, and I think that we can continue on with discussion as we move on. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Jen, talk to us about some of the symptoms of such disorders.
Yeah, there are quite a number of symptoms. You find people have gotten married, or they are friends, and all of a sudden they are not together because maybe there is non-performance in terms of sexual activity. Someone is disinterested completely. They don't have the sexual urge, and because sex is it goes with the phases, it can occur at early or any the phases of sexuality. So you find like erectile dysfunction. Someone is excited and then they are not able to perform. So it can cause a lot of distress and frustration on one partner, and sometimes divorce and separation. Yeah, so yeah.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for.
That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Muyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Disorders.
There are triggers to disorders, like we have already mentioned about alcohol and substance use. Sometimes that is a major trigger. The other one could be sicknesses, chronic sicknesses, like diabetes. The other one is anxiety. And this one is it is common. Anxiety, depression, body image is another trigger. Lack of self-esteem, that's another trigger. Another trigger that maybe has been overlooked a little bit is this. Some people are brought up in a kind of environment where it is very strict, such that issues, even when somebody is a small child, there are those stages of growth, and at a certain point in the growth of a child, they are so interested in their body, and especially their private parts. They're in that stage of discovery. And at that time, you may find a child is playing aloud with their private parts, and the caregiver normally becomes very over-strict. And so a child may get fixated at that stage. And so by the time they now get to maybe an age where they'll have a relationship, they are already fixated and they don't know how to react to issues of sexuality. And so you find that is another trigger. Yeah.
Dr. Sarah, what are some of the impacts that such disorders can have in a family and in a society? What are some of the impacts that they can cause in a family and in a society?
As it has been mentioned, we have already seen some of the results of such kind of dysfunctioning, sexual dysfunctioning. One is separation. You find couples separating, and nobody gets to know why, because again they don't want to disclose, they don't want to tell the cause, but it could be either of either the man or the lady. Maybe they are having a kind of a sexual disorder, and of course this triggers to the children. If there were children being brought up by such a couple, you expect them to be the consumers of the breakout of the family. And so we are ending up having families that are, our children, especially like now I'm a lecturer, I realize that our children are really suffering, especially children from families that have separated. They are really suffering. They are carrying the baggages of families that are couples that are broken up. And then we also realize basically with dysfunction in families, it triggers, it becomes now more of affecting every other organ within the society. Because in the church, there is discrimination. You have separated. People don't want to hear of somebody who has separated. They want to see you as if you are a sinner. They don't want to give you church opportunities, like you are not given a role or a responsibility because you look like you are a failure. And so it is affecting every other organ. In the offices, you find people every time maybe they see you as a person who is a divorcee, you have separated, they see you as if you are not able to perform. So it's bringing out very many other issues. So I think we still need to work out on how do we expose the issues of sexual disorder such that even if you come out of a family or of a marriage, you can also be seen as if you did the right thing. Yes, you don't have to remain oppressed. You don't have to, and we accept that these things are there and they are happening. But at the same time, I think in the medical field, they need to discuss more of what is happening before a couple separates. Is it possible to visit a medical practitioner who can tell you, you can be able to do this and the other. You can tolerate each other. So like we have said, that some of them can be due to acquired causes, yeah, like food or like diet or like sicknesses, and those are things that can be cured. So I feel there is a lot that is happening due to sexual disorders, but what are we doing about it as a society? Are we discussing it openly? Yes, so, but I think it's possible to overcome.
Dr. Jane, the disorders, are they different in men and women?
Yes and no. There are certain disorders that affect both, and there are those that affect women. For example, vaginitis is for women where they experience pain during penetration and they disgust the idea of sexual activity. Erectile dysfunction happens to men. They cannot rise to the occasion, and this causes a lot of distress to them. We have other dysfunctions that affect the women, such as what can I say? It's called female disorder, where they have low interest. For example, if a woman is pregnant, for instance, there is loss of pleasure and urge. So the men may not understand. It's because of the hormonal imbalance that they are experiencing during the pregnancy, and it goes away after they give birth to their children. So couples should be tolerant to each other and understand every phase that they are going through. During menopause, when women are growing older, 55, 60, there is also decline in certain hormonal hormones. So you find that when there is that imbalance, it affects the sexual urge and desire. And also men, as they age, the hormonal imbalance also affects, they cannot be the strong oak they used to be. So you realize they become frustrated and they may start using Viagra and sexual enhancing medication, which again now comes with a lot of side effects and deaths, sudden deaths in our society today, because there is that ignorance that age has caught up, and it is good to accept. We find today young men using Viagra because they want to be excited. Have hyper sexual disorder, whereby the urges do not stop. So the people are chasing out after sex, they are thinking after sex, their work is affected, they are watching pornography, their mind is preoccupied by sex and lust. And this is another difficult thing that is affecting our young people today. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Rehab, such disorders, how can they affect relationships between couples?
Well, relationships, especially for married couples, are pegged on sex. In other words, sex is the epitome of marriage. When there is a disorder, that means that there is no performance. The sex is not being performed. And that means that a key ingredient in marriage is missing. And if that is happening, this key ingredient in marriage is missing, the couple is not satisfied. That means the man is dissatisfied or the woman is dissatisfied. And there is only maybe that long that people can be able to hold on. A time will come when they'll become disinterested in the relationship because that key ingredient is missing. And that means that the relationship cannot last. It is very difficult for a marriage relationship to last. It's maybe the way it is said, it is until death do part. if that key ingredient is not there. For one, if sex is not there, that means there will be no children. The act of love is not there. And as we know, marriage is sustained through love, and sex is part of that ingredient. And therefore, what I am saying is that really these, sexual issues, dysfunctions, are actually one of the things that would affect a marriage relationship to the extent that a marriage can break down.
Dr. Sarah, how can we encourage people and our society to be more open to the disorder and to be able to, in order to fight stigma and discrimination for the people who have such disorders?
Maybe we need to first think of how do we make it an open topic? How do we discuss it? We create an atmosphere where people can discuss basically about sex and sexuality before we get to the point of what to discuss about sexual disorders. Yeah? This is simply because I think when we are given sex education, it will make people open up. And it's to the extent that we see it is a topic that people can openly talk about, is when people will get to the point of now saying what is working and what is not working. And I think people will live a liberated life if we open up and we say that in institutions, like right from primary, we speak it openly, we go to the university, we speak it openly, because people are using the Google advice. They are more in the internet to search information on what is sex, and then they get to find out a few things about sexual disorders. And we have seen some of these things are just, people have a lot of stereotypes. Even some of these sexual disorders, they're just in the mind. If those stereotypes and stigma issues are cleared, and people are given an opportunity to freely discuss them, you'll find, in fact, we might deal with 50% of the sexual disorders, because people would come to a point of saying whatever they have read, whatever they have heard is not the issue. So we create forums that are either even in the church, and I'll talk about church because that's where people really believe so much of what is said. So if it can be done in the church, where people can speak freely, and then we have the people who can do psychoeducation in this area of sex, because counselors have a lot of information and they can guide people, because we are finding, again, with sexual disorders, it's contributing also to more of mental health illnesses that we have with people. So if this can be discussed freely and we talk about it as if it is just like the way we talk about eating food, we create a neutral space, we create free space or safe space where there are forums, where people are expressing themselves. I think we are able to help many who could be going through sexual disorders. And it will be a thing of the past. In a way, there is a way to help people through. And I think even the medical practitioner, I still urge them to be open and speak to the couples freely. When they are visited, let them talk freely on what could be happening amongst them. And then let people not hide out. Instead of just breaking up, let us discuss it openly and say this may have happened, but we can correct it this way. And I think the other thing is we avoid having multiple partners in sex, because that also can be contributing to this. When people start comparing performances, you make other people feel like they are not performing, other than making it perfecting the skill in marriage.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Sarah. Thank you, Dr. Rahab. Thank you, Dr. Jen. I know we've not covered even half. The topic is very wide, but I'm hoping in the future